And though your stomach grinds against your backbone and your cheeks are hollow, though the tiger flays your belly, you can't eat. You want to, you have to, but your fear is greater than your hunger. Because when you do, when you choke down a spoonful of plain yogurt, 5 pretzel sticks, a grape, that's when the voice in your head starts up, a whisper, a cajoling sigh. You don't need to eat, you're strong, so strong. That's right, good girl. Hi, okay, my name's Emmy, and I'm going to be talking today about Brave Girl Eating. Um, so this book is written by Harriet Brown, and it's about her daughter who has this pseudonym of Kitty in the book, and she's struggling with anorexia throughout her ages of like 12 through 15. So the first quote I had put in there in my very cheesy intro is kind of how the author is describing the feeling of anorexia in terms of how she like experienced it through her daughter. And it's on like literally page 2 of the book, so it's kind of like the first chapter setting you up to kind of get the idea of how anorexia like takes over a person and kind of their mindset. And so that quote is very powerful in itself. It's just kind of showing you like it's not the idea that they're not hungry, they don't want to eat, or they don't think they need to eat. It's deeper than that. It's more of a if you eat, you're bad, and if you don't eat, you're good. Just to kind of back up and give you guys more of an overview of the book. So like I said, it's written by Harriet Brown, and it's detailing her daughter, Kitty, is detailing her life as she's starting to show signs and symptoms of an eating disorder, and then later gets a diagnosis of anorexia nervosa, and kind of like the mom is like telling stories of like her interactions with Kitty and kind of like her mindset as she's like learning her habits and everything. And it also goes through like the family trying to like help Kitty get over the eating disorder and like get better and like, you know, obviously get back to healthy weight. And it kind of details like the Maudsley family therapy approach, which I'll go into a little bit more detail in a minute. But it was pretty interesting just to get like that insider view on like someone really close to somebody with an eating disorder, because it's obviously not like a first person experience, but it's very close to it because it's her mom when she's like 12, 13, 14. So they're very close, and it's a little bit of a wild ride, but it was definitely interesting. A few things that I want to make note of, but overall it was a really good book, and I would definitely recommend it to anybody who, like me, had no knowledge really of eating disorders. Even being in a master's program, you know, for counseling, it's still like eating disorders is not really that widely talked about because not that much is known about them. So, like I said, I would recommend this to anybody, like teachers or people with kids or people who know kids or anything like that, because kind of noticing the signs or the symptoms early is one of, you know, the first things you can do to help somebody with an eating disorder. And even the mom in this book kind of talks about how she wishes she had seen some of the signs or gotten help earlier, and quit like pushing it off like, oh, she's just thin, she's just, you know, she just doesn't want to eat dessert, like things like that. So, like, the one interesting thing that I wanted to point out for sure is that like the mom, also the author, like throughout the book, she's always referring to like Kitty's eating disorder as like a separate entity. She calls it like the demon, and she calls it not Kitty, and she's always trying to like differentiate between Kitty and not Kitty, and like how the eating disorder like says things and does things and makes Kitty do things that Kitty normally wouldn't do. And so it ends up looking something like this. I would really like some food or some pizza.
Don't eat that, you dumb pig.
And the whole thing is weird, but the author does acknowledge this. On page 90, she says, "Giving the illness a face other than hers helps me separate our daughter from the forces that torment her." She acknowledges that she knows there's no literal demon inside of her, but this is the only acknowledgement of it. And then the rest, she's literally referring to the eating disorder as a demon, and it has a mind of its own, and it's making Kitty do all these things that Kitty wouldn't do normally, and all this stuff. And so that's one of my criticisms of the book, because it's like, as we know, mental illness does not define a person, but we can't just separate it from the person and then hope it goes away, which the mom does definitely try to do. I mean, I know it's like a coping mechanism and things like that, but we need to kind of accept all parts of a person and then move forward with that, in my opinion. So that is just one weird thing I just wanted to point out. Second thing I wanted to talk about was the Maudsley family therapy approach. So pretty much just a synopsis of that is that instead of like the person that's affected, like going to therapy, going to treatment, things like that, the entire family's involved in treatment. So in this example, the mom and the dad would like make all of Kitty's meals, like monitor her eating, monitor her weight, and things like that. The little sister would just, I don't know, be like emotional support, I guess, but she was involved. She was young, but she knew everything that was going on, and she was involved at the dinner table with her. She knew about like eating time, she knew about meal time, she knew how important it was for Kitty to eat, things like that. And it worked for them, and it actually has a very high success rate, but nobody talks about it. And so that was really interesting to me, just reading about this and how positive it is in treating eating disorders, and yet it's not that well known or well used, because they talk about how a lot of times like therapists and doctors want to find like an underlying cause for the eating disorder, and they don't want to just like move on to treating it. And like, so the quote in the book is like, the Maudsley approach, like they're saying, is that we don't need to know in order to treat the illness. So like, they don't need to know what caused it, they don't need to know the underlying issues to move forward and to help that person heal. And so I think that is really amazing, and it definitely opened my eyes to that. And I will definitely like be more into that when I'm a therapist. Third thing I wanted to like briefly touch on is how much this book opened my eyes to like how okay it is to comment on someone's weight if they're underweight or, you know, not overweight. Like, people are so okay to be like, oh my god, you look so thin, you look great, you look so skinny, like, oh, how have you lost weight, you look wonderful. And actually in the book it's telling about how Kitty, like at her lowest weight, she was at the hospital for having like heart palpitations, and the nurse was like about to like do her IV or something, and she was like, oh my god, you're so thin, like how do you keep your figure? And so things like that, it kind of made me like more hyper aware, I guess. And like, people were always commenting in this book, they were always telling Kitty like, oh my god, you look so good, you're so thin, like how are you keeping the weight off and all this stuff, when obviously they didn't realize that, you know, she was struggling with an eating disorder. Like, she did, like, ideally wouldn't be this thin, but like she was severely underweight, and people were telling her she looked good and complimenting her figure and complimenting her weight, and she was 14, 15, like so it just kind of made me like hyper aware to that, and so I wanted to like extend that message. Like, we always don't know what somebody's going through or what they have been through, and so like a general rule is like, if that person cannot fix it in 5 seconds, then don't comment on it. So like, if they have something on their face, you know, you can tell them, but don't comment on their hairstyle, don't comment on, you know, their weight, you know, things like that. Like and this book just made me realize like how important it is to like take a step back and realize we don't have all the information, everything is not what it seems, and we're usually probably wrong with our assumptions. So to celebrate the end of this video, I'm going to show you my very own brave girl eating. Yay!